managing close. All right. Okay, Erica, we are live on our YouTube channel, so I'm going to kick it over to you.
Hi. Today we are going to talk about some of the things that you should not prune in the fall. And my name is Erica. I am the IPM manager and grower here at Glover Nursery. I'm a professional horticulturist and I work on a lot of different things here at the nursery. So the first thing I was going to do today was tease you and ask you to stick around to the end of the video, because at that point I'm going to talk about some things that you should prune in the fall. That can be a whole video of its own, and there definitely are some things that should be taken care of at this time of year. But for what you should not prune in the fall, we're going to get started on that. Typically speaking, couple rules of thumb. You should not prune shrubs flowering shrubs until right after they are done blooming. So if you have a spring blooming shrub, you should prune it immediately after it's done blooming in the spring. If you have a fall blooming shrub, you should wait until the spring to prune it. Because sometimes fall, with the cold weather and things, can cause problems with pruning. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about. And then the second rule of thumb is really simple. If you are not sure whether or not you should prune something, chances are you're better pruning it in the spring than you are in the fall. So it's better to just wait a couple of months, and late winter, very early spring would be the best time to prune those things you're not sure about. So for the reasons why you should not prune in the fall, things like your trees and other deciduous shrubs, is right now they are taking all of the sugars that have been made in their leaves over the course of the season, the evergreens too, and they're sending all of that, all of those resources down to their roots to prepare to go into dormancy. And if you are physically removing those leaves at this time of year, you could be reducing the number of resources that are available, and you could be shorting that tree or shrub on the nutrients that it needs for spring to come out healthy and full in the spring. At the same time, when you make these cuts in the fall, some of the trees just don't have the energy right now because they've been using their resources all season. They don't have the energy to properly seal off those cuts before the winter. And if you prune early enough in the fall, you could actually be triggering, you could signal to the tree that it's time to start growing. And you could, with this brand new tender growth, you could have a lot of dieback when the temperature gets cold. So there are some reasons why you would want to avoid pruning now. Another thing is that the actual structures of the trees and shrubs might not be visible yet until they drop all of their leaves. So you might think you want to take this branch off, but by the time you do, you could be altering the structure of the tree in a way that you don't intend. It might have an adverse effect on the structure of the tree come the next season. So now I just want to get into really simply some examples of things that you should wait to prune. We have a few here in the nursery. This is one example, Forsythia. Maybe you don't know the name of it, but it is a shrub that a lot of people have around the valley in the spring. It's usually one of the very first shrubs to start flowering. Bright yellow flowers cover this entire shrub. There are different varieties of Forsythia around the valley. Some are quite large, some are a little bit smaller, but they all flower with this really intense yellow color. And those blooms genetically are already on this branch, and they just haven't come out yet. So if you cut off this branch, you are throwing away that many flowers for next season. Same with this lilac. Lilac shrubs also develop their flowers on the wood that they grew last year. So if you were to take the tips off of these branches now, you are physically removing those flowers and throwing them away, and you won't get as good of a bloom in the spring. And then one of the reasons why you wouldn't cut something like butterfly bush is because it tends to be pretty sensitive to the cold. And even on the most established butterfly bushes, over any given winter, you can have some die back. So it's better to just wait until the spring, see what parts of the shrub are alive before you start cutting into it and reducing down the die back. Besides, a lot of the butterfly bush are still in flower now, and you don't want to forfeit the flowers that you have now in October in Utah. There are lots of other things. Some that I have on here are hydrangeas that bloom on old wood. So those would be things like the big leaf hydrangeas, oak leaf hydrangeas, if you have mountain hydrangea, climbing hydrangea. The panicle hydrangeas that we have featured a few times this year, they bloom on new wood, so they are not necessarily part of this category. So it's kind of important to know which type of hydrangea you have. And if you're not sure, come and talk to us. We can help you try and figure it out. Weigelas, you should avoid pruning. Deutzia, if you have any of them. And then also bluebeards, they have really pretty blue flowers for a lot of the fall season. Bluebeards are a lot like the butterfly bush, where you just really should wait for winter dieback to see how far you should cut it in the spring anyway. If you cut it this far and it continues to die back from the cold, you're losing more of the shrub than you would if you had just left it for the winter. So those are examples of shrubs not to prune. I also would avoid pruning specifically maples or birches at this time of year. They have a tendency to lose a lot of sap. Sometimes people call it bleeding while they're sending a lot of their nutrients up and down the tree. So maples should really be pruned when they are most dormant in the entire season, if possible, which is usually late winter before they wake up. And then evergreens. Really, you should avoid pruning evergreens if at all possible. Things like junipers and yews and boxwood, euonymus, a lot of these types of evergreens, even though they don't truly completely shut down for the season, they do slow down, and pruning them at this time of year can expose them to the winter damage. So on those, I also recommend waiting until you see a flush of new growth in the spring, and that would be the ideal time to start pruning your evergreens if you need to prune them. And then, as promised, I'm going to talk about a couple things that you should definitely prune now. Perennials that have large leaves, things that are prone to disease or insect problems. So up in the perennial department, they would be things like hostas and peonies and things that are like iris. Those plants have a tendency to have mushy leaves over the winter. They harbor a lot of fungal spores and bacteria, and they leave habitat for insects. So certain kinds of perennials are better to take down now. And then there are some others that you can wait until the spring. Not all of them are as urgent in the fall as those large leaf perennials. And going back to the woody plant materials, the trees and shrubs, things you should prune now are diseased branches, broken branches, anything that could potentially be a danger over the coming winter season. Like if you have something that you've already identified as being a weak spot in the tree, you should address it before the winter so that you don't have any branches suddenly falling on cars or walkways in the middle of the winter. We sometimes get these crazy heavy snowstorms. They're hard to predict, and it's better to be safe than sorry, especially if it's a safety issue, like to humans. That's the most important thing.
Or cats.
Or cats, yeah.
Or
Make
dogs.
sure your cats are safe and your dogs. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for listening. Come stop by the nursery. We have lots and lots of shrubs and trees still in stock. It's a great time to plant. Really, it is. Believe us, you get a lot of root growth in the fall. And we have a lot of things here for you.
I'll do a 360. I'll lift the camera and do a 360 so everyone can see how pretty it is, how much stuff there is.
Yeah, there really is a lot here. We're pretty well stocked, and it's all good stuff for Utah. We bring in things that perform well here, that are hardy. So come and see us, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Let me do my, as promised, 360. You stay there so you can be my marker of where to turn back to. Here we go. I hope this works. I can't see the screen. We'll see. Oh, okay. Oh, the sun's blinding me. Okay. We'll watch this later and see if that actually worked. Might just have a view of all the cement around here.
I hope we didn't just make all of you seasick.
That's true. If we did, I'm really sorry. All right. Thank you,
All right.
Erica.
Thanks.